Hello, my name is William, the avid reader, and today I'm reviewing The Future of Power, written by Joseph Nye in 2011. So this is the second book of Joseph Nye I'm reviewing, and this one is about the future of power. So it talks about how power works in global politics, types of power, the power shifts, and also a suggested policy of how things should happen. And this is from the liberal school of international relations. So the previous book I've reviewed, we presented a lot of different political views, schools of thought on this, but this one is much more about the liberal view, although he does bring in some realism into this, so it's more of a neoliberal perspective. He calls it liberal realism, he suggests. So part one is the types of power. First talks about what power is in global affairs, so that's basically being able to influence others. And one of the types of power is military power. That's decreasing more and more in importance and has changed a lot. So military power can be used as hard power, putting pressure on governments or invading them or something like that, but it can also be aiding. So for example, in Haiti, the United States brought its army there to deliver foreign relief. So military power can both be hard and soft power, interestingly. And when it's used in a hard way, it's harder and harder to use. So for example, in Afghanistan, small terrorist cells, they are able to disrupt American power very easily, since it's very costly now to station military power here. And we can also see the same in Iraq, since there's media now, so if there's a war crime committed by a country, they will know about it. Soft power is a lot more important now, because you have to not only convince the people with fear that they have to follow you, but also win their hearts and minds. Because the Muslim world, if you do not convince them from a soft power perspective, it will fail probably. The second type of power he talks about is economic power. So you've got interdependence that's discussed here. He also talks about the power of the oil states, but they will likely decrease as they cannot bring the United States to its knees, as there are private companies that are options. Then there's also discussion of how sanctions work, and that they are often ineffective. It's rarely that they actually accomplish their goals, but they can be kind of good, and you have to be smart how you put them, and multilateralism would be good. So they may have been partially effective on Cuba. They can maybe effective on different countries. What's noticeable is that when they're effective, it's when it really matters sometimes. So in Libya, they were effective for Gaddafi to abandon his nuclear weapons plans, and also abandon his foreign terrorism funding. In South Africa, it ended apartheid. But sanctions, you have to be careful with how to use them, and you have to be smart about it, and this is where smart power comes in, where you both use hard and soft power. And the thing with sanction is, you may offer a benefit to a country. So, for example, you may offer free trade, but then if you remove that, could be seen as punishment. So there's the carrot and stick thing here. The second part of this book is about the power shifts. First, it talks about the diffusion of power and the cyber power. So now individuals hold a lot more powers, although governments and transnational corporations hold a lot of power still, but there are non-state actors matter more and more. So because of the information age, we have the ability to communicate. There's an overflow of information, so which news sites are trustworthy is for us to determine, and those who are able to determine them have an advantage. There's also some talk about censorship and how cyber power isn't that important. Finally, if you find a hole in the cybersecurity system, then it's easier for hackers to take control of it and disrupt it, as some Russian bots have done previously. So it's not really that important. I think cyber power businesses try to provide free speech platforms, as Google has done, while you've got authoritarian states like Iran and China who are trying to prevent it. And after that, there's talk about the power transition, and it's a bit of a myth actually that America is in the real decline. They've been talking about this for a while now. And you saw a lot of analysts predicted that the Soviet Union would win the Cold War, and they predicted this in the 70s, but in the late 80s they collapsed. There's also a thing that China, the fear of China rising, and the BRICS. The BRICS are a bad concept because you've got developing countries, developed countries, underdeveloped countries, so it's not really a fair view of the world you're looking at. So China will develop, yes, but they're focusing economically, and they may develop their political power, but they will probably not go to war, as you will be balancing by other countries. And it's interesting to read that because we know how China is becoming more and more powerful today, but they still haven't really started any wars, although they've gained a lot of power in a few years. However, there was prediction that China might move to a civil liberty system more towards Singapore, but now we know that's not true. China is moving in the opposite direction. It's closer to totalitarianism, although it isn't today than it was 10 years ago, unfortunately, with Xi Jinping here. American decline is not a true thing, and then watching Europe rise is not really a danger, or Japan, they're economic and military allies, and Japan isn't developing really its military, and Europe doesn't have the willpower to be a leader yet, so the United States will be the central leader in all of the liberal democracies, the West. And the final part is about policy suggestions, so how smart power should be used. So smart power is a mix of soft and hard power, so you try to induce people, but you also try to attract them, and soft power is often a lot better, so you want incremental increases in improvements in civil liberties, you want improvement in institutions and civil society, but that will be gradual, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. We have to accept things as they are, and things are improving now. To look at this book from now, we know that some things have been in decline, unfortunately, in the last 10 years. So Russia is more authoritarian now, so is China. Parts of Central Europe are more authoritarian. Turkey has gone bad, unfortunately. We know that the Arab Spring failed miserably. So, yes, the liberal view that things might improve may be wrong, and we know we had the rise of Trump, so we had the United States soft power collapse for 4 years, but this 10-year era may all be temporary, so things may be good again, as Joseph Nye believes. So, how would I rate The Future of Power by Joseph Nye? I would say 8 out of 10. So it's a good book. It's different from the other book on understanding international conflicts, which explained ideologies, different schools of thought on international relations. But this is still an interesting book. It's a lot more about his liberal thought, his neoliberal thoughts, mixed in with some realism, and he understands that hard power is useful sometimes, and sometimes soft power is a lot better. But I believe he does some small mistakes. I mean, he keeps talking about these narcotics and like it's something bad. But it's good. He understands that free markets are a good thing. Some regulation is maybe good, but there's a price for everything. So there are different trade-offs. So the United States is a highly innovative state. There's a talk about American exceptionism. You maybe have to choose between innovation and equality. Inequality he talks about here. I'm not sure if that's really an important thing, but yeah, it's a good book, 8 out of 10. So Joseph Nye, you wrote a good book. So this was the Avid Reader's review of The Future of Power, written by Joseph Nye in 2011. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys next time.